A seminar, Venture Building, Scaling Up Science and Technology-Based Companies. That's a big challenge for our ecosystem, and we are here today to learn from the experience of a very successful ecosystem in California. This seminar is jointly organized by the Faculty of Engineering and Science and our master program, professional master program in technology management and entrepreneurship at the Universidad Adolfo Ibáñez, a 15-year-old program that we have been running when I am not in government, where we are delighted to welcome distinguished experts from California and also from Chile. We have Bernardita here, also part of the panel, to discuss a very relevant challenge that face research universities and in general, I would say, innovation ecosystem around the world, but also in Chile. How do we transform scientific discoveries into innovations that create economic and social value? We have been in this business trying to translate research to business or to economic impact for 30 years, and we are still quite immature as a country in that regard. We have a very important challenge, which is to increase our R&D investment, to increase innovation. Jose Miguel have done many studies on the relationship between R&D, innovation, and productivity. And we have been stagnant in total factor productivity in the last 15 years. And we invest very little in R&D as a country, and the university have a very significant proportion of all the R&D that is being done in Chile. Then that's why it's so important and essential that universities could be able to or develop the capability to translate knowledge, research into solutions that improve people's lives, productivity. We do believe that this will have a huge impact in total factor productivity, strengthen industrial competitiveness, and address other major social problems or challenges that we have. Well, in order to achieve these goals and objectives, we require much more than research. We need effective research translation, technology commercialization, entrepreneurial talent, venture building, and a concept that sometimes we don't have well developed, patient capital, because if we are talking about deep tech, you need to be very patient. In fact, an infrastructure and a center, Jose Miguel, you developed when you were in government, in downtown, focus in deep tech, biotech mostly, in order to be able to promote that in Chile. Then we need to have all these capacities, but also public policies, like the one that was implemented, but we need much more. And we need a close collaboration among universities, industry, investors, government, for helix approach, at least. Sometimes we need community. If we are talking about biotech, I have complicated experience with transgenic products that are still in New Zealand somewhere because we're not able to introduce because of concern of community. Then we need to work on that front also. Today's discussion is particularly timely for Chile because we, in the last 15 years, I would say, have developed technology transfer system or ecosystem that the goal is to translate research university into business and to have impact in the industrial sector. More recently, we enacted a new technology transfer law that provide, I would say, solve some basic problems that we had. For example, some universities were not able to have spin-outs where academic could invest on or could have shares on, and the university cannot have stakes in these spin-outs. That was a major problem. In fact, we still had, until very recently, a law that was quite old in the sense that didn't learn from Bayh-Dole Act. Bayh-Dole Act was 1980, and this law was passed in 1981. And it says that all the financing from the seed law that comes from the government cannot be patented, cannot be protected, you cannot develop the business, and you have to go to the government, back to the government to ask for permit in order to do that. That's really old-fashioned. But the law was never enforced. That was a good thing about that, but still create for investor uncertainty. And this was solved with the recent regulation. We have with this seminar the opportunity to learn from the very successful ecosystem, but also to see how we could accelerate the creation and the scaling of spin-outs. One of the challenges, we were good at creating startups. You know, we have many programs. It's more challenging to have scale-ups, you know, that become global business. And we want to learn, especially in this area. And to begin the program, I would like to invite our Dean, Claudio Siva, professor, because he also teach in our faculty. I don't know where you get time, Claudio, but you do that, to deliver an opening remarks. Thank you, Claudio.
Thank you, Eduardo. It's funny to be the dean of Eduardo. I think most of you that know Eduardo for such a long time, it's such a pleasure. It's such a great thing to have you here because Eduardo has this magic trick of bringing wonderful people together. So first of all, thank you for organizing this event. And so some thoughts. First of all, welcome to Universidad Adolfo Ibáñez for those who have never been here. Particularly, I hear that some of you are even making it for the first time in Chile, so welcome to Chile as well. Adolfo Ibáñez started as a business school 70 years ago, but as a university only 35, so we were a pretty young university. But this university has done it really well. I'm only here for 2 years, so that's nothing to do with me, but this university has done it really well in science. Just recently we've heard that the QS ranking, we're the best ranked young university in Chile. Others are hundreds of years old. All these things are relevant when you think of a university that has this mission not only in teaching, that's how it started as a business school, but also for us as a faculty of engineering and sciences, the fact that you are also strong in science, relevant to the Latin American context. But thinking of the Latin American context, when Eduardo's mentioned that we invest very little in R&D, that's true. I remember when 2010, Chile entered the OECD, and we used to be, of course, a country that did it pretty well within the Latin American context, but it's all of a sudden, being in OECD, we're bottom, the end of the row. And it hasn't changed much. We have here Jose Miguel Benavente, Eduardo, who led the national institution which fosters research, connecting it with industry, Corfo, and you know well those statistics, we still last within OECD. So having a panel, first of all in English, is again something relevant for us because we bring in, as UAE, we have this how we started to bring in ecosystems, to bring business closer to science, to bring business closer to academia, and how we can solve, being this country down far south, or depends how you measure it, which so many amazing opportunities, being a country embedded with sun and wind, which is much better than oil, others, being a country which is still a very active attractor of talent. It produces a lot of talent, but in the end, if we don't use that talent, if we don't bring that talent together and transform that talent in creating more welfare, as our motto of our faculty says, we need to put engineering and sciences to serve the well-being of today, but also future generations. We won't really make a big difference. So thinking in these kinds of events, to have this distinctive group, have you here, have within our faculty, some of our faculties are here, have you here to hear about what your experience is with this. I'd say this is my personal bias. I studied twice in California, but this sister state in the United States, very similar in climate, but where we have so much collaboration is really great, and really exciting to have you here as well, Ruben, and I see as well some of our directors of some of our centers, like the Center of Bioengineering, which was first started with Cedric Little, but now it's led by Thomas Ledger. We have centers in mining. We have centers where technology brings together, for example, space and Earth. We just signed an agreement with this other country on the other side of the world, which is Australia. So we're trying to bring together how science and how engineering can bring new technologies to serve those things that we're good at. Chile has advantages in mining. Chile has advantages in of course, all our embedded nature, energy. So, but if we don't do this, if we don't scale it up, if we don't keep working and bringing startups, connecting science, those deep science ideas with, how did I learn today? It's not only angel investors, but also devil investors. That was I heard that today, so I won't give away who said it, but there's some devil investors say in here. It will be really hard for us to achieve as a country the real development. So with much further to say, thank you again for being here. Thank you, Andrea White, as well, for hosting. Thank you very much, Bernardita, as well, from here, from CMPC. And I'm very excited to hear what you will be sharing with us and the discussion we'll have further on. So again, please a big applause to Eduardo, who brings us all together.
Okay, thank you, Dean. We will start with the keynote speaker. I'm seeing him, he's here, yeah. Let me introduce you very quickly. Ruben has recognized leadership in university technology transfer, research translation, and venture creation. During his tenure at the University of California in San Diego, in charge of tech transfer and commercialization of technology, he played a leading role in transforming cutting-edge academic research into successful licensing agreements, university spin-outs, and high-impact biotechnology companies. California, San Diego is very strong in biotechnology. This university has become one of the leading research universities in the area of life science, and have this ability to translate science into economic activities with significant societal impact. I would like to explain that I also got to know a predecessor of Ruben. Ruben spent many years, in this tech transfer business in the university, in 2 universities in California, in fact. But then moved to the corporate life science sector. He has a life science career. And today he has 2 roles. One is to be the CEO of Regain. Regain is a spin-out from the Universidad Adolfo Ibáñez, from Viña del Mar campus, Where is Cedric? Over there. He was the researcher that with the students developed an essential tremor schemes. You have the former students here? You have them? Good. Okay, there they are. And at some point, they have the view that technology like this have to be thought globally. And the country that is more advanced, and the area of the country more advanced in developing this type of business is California. And in particular, San Diego. Then he's then the CEO of Regain Therapeutics. Now it's a San Diego-based company that originated in Chile. But also, Ruben is has a leading activity in Ligand, a company that he works for, Ligand Pharmaceuticals, developing new business there with investors. He also was the president, is the past president of San Diego Innovation Council. Then you have become also a person that contribute to the development of the whole ecosystem in San Diego. In 2009, I had the opportunity to meet and to work with the predecessor of Ruben, Alan Pau. He was in charge of technology transfer at the time, but then he moves to as vice provost to Cornell University, and we, from the National Innovation Council, we brought him together with the expert from Autumn, the International Association in Technology Transfer, to help us to start transforming the national university system. The first thing that they asked before doing the consultancy is, okay, get the information on all the disclosures, all the licensing, the spin-outs that have been done in the last 10 years in Chile in order to see where we will start. We find almost nothing. Serious, almost nothing. Their advice was essential, critical to develop a model of technology transfer that has an on-campus TTO for universities and off-campus, which are the hubs. We have 3 hubs. And the reason why we did this way was simply because we have many, many universities that didn't have enough deal flow to justify the capabilities that a really successful TTO requires. Then we have this mixed model. And the hub was thought for reaching out more globally and helping the innovation to reach out more globally. And Alan Pau told me something that I always recall. He said that San Diego, when he took the position in San Diego, in California, San Diego, he said, evolved from being known primarily by his nice beaches, by the zoo, and the army barracks. That's it. That was San Diego. And if you go to San Diego today, it's one of the global biotechnology ecosystem in terms of business development, very important. And San Diego University play a key role, and technology transfer play a key role in that regard. Then we want to have here Ruben to speak about technology transfer and commercialization, and to bring us the case of UC San Diego to share with all of us what has been your experience, the lessons, what can we learn from that experience, if we could learn something. Come in. Thank you.
It's a big responsibility. Was it Ashley Stevens that came with Alan Paul? Do you know? Do you remember the name of the guy or lady or woman? Steve Ferguson, Ashley Stevens. Who?
John Fraser.
John Fraser. Oh, wow. Yeah. Another known atom entity. Yeah. Those are people who really have.
So I met him afterwards, and he has a story that
Alan Bennett was here.
Oh, I know Alan Bennett too. Of course. Yeah, all of those names are names of people who still are involved in the United States in developing, technology transfer across the nation. There's this organization that is called ATOM. I don't know if there's a similar organization here in Chile or not, but that's one of the secret sauces of the US, right? That organization, and I'll get more into that in a second. I'm going to switch to Spanish for just a second to our guest. Muchas gracias por la invitación. Es un placer, un honor, la verdad. Es mi cuarta vez aquí en Chile y cada vez que vengo estoy mucho más emocionado y más comprometido y con muchas más ganas de seguir aquí, pues aumentando la colaboración. I'm going to switch to English again because actually English is better for me than Spanish now because I forget about my Spanish. So you wanted me to talk a little bit about my experience at UC San Diego. And I have 10 minutes, 15 minutes? 15 minutes. Okay, I'll play it by ear here. I think it's important to talk about how I came to be at UC San Diego. And that was actually reluctantly. That is not something I wanted to do, to become the executive director of the office and be in charge of the largest of the 10 UC campuses in tech transfer. I didn't want to do that. Why? Because I've spent 12 years of my life after my PhD working at large corporations, Becton Dickinson, Merck, Millipore, Abbott, but in R&D, product development, collaborations, and finally, sponsoring research and licensing technologies from universities across the world for about 7 years. And I dealt with UCSD, trying to license technologies, and it was a pain in the ass. UCSD was one of the worst places to do business with, to license that technology. But as it has it, after 12 years of being in corporate, launching products to the market in the US, in Europe, and Canada, I pivoted completely, and I was offered an opportunity to actually become a vice president of technology transfer at a small nonprofit institution associated with a medical center in Los Angeles. This was Harbor UCLA Medical Center, where I met Cedric. Harbor UCLA Medical Center is an LA County hospital, the largest LA County hospital with a huge population of patients in LA. Next to it, there was a small nonprofit institute of about 100 researchers with only a budget of $100 million a year, but that was producing a significant output of technologies, therapies, diagnostics, medical devices above its weight. I'm not going to talk about that, but the point is that I became the head of tech transfer after 12 years of corporate and dealing with tech transfer on the other side, sponsoring research, doing licenses. And I just parachuted from the top, right? So I didn't know how it worked from the bottom up. So I really kind of made it up. So I made it up in a way that it made business sense to me. I started working with the inventors. I started working with the companies that were spin-offs of the center, facilitating business transactions, because I've had 12 years of experience doing business in business transactions globally. So that worked really well, and 3 years into it, UCSD recruited me. So I knew Alan's successor. Actually, between Alan and I, there was one lady, an English lady, who had been my friend for a long time. Even though I wasn't able to get any deals done with UCSD, She became a good friend when she was the head of the office. And she reached out to me and said, hey, Ruben, now that you're in tech transfer, you've been doing this for 3 years, I'm retiring. Would you like to apply for my job? And I said, hell no. No. I have, 25 invention disclosures a year here at LA Biomed, where I was. You guys get 350. I manage 3 people here, 2, 3. You have 35. I'm like, no, not interested. Thank you. But she persisted, and she was, very adamant. So I interviewed, and I went to UCSD. And one thing that she told me was key. She says, I need you to help my team, and I need you to help my team kind of gel and understand the new management coming into UCSD. And this is where things get interesting. There was a new chancellor that came to UCSD, Pradeep, who came from Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. What's the name of the big technical university in Pittsburgh? Carnegie Mellon. So he was a dean there, became the chancellor at UCSD, and he really wanted to let loose tech transfer. So he hired a guy, an Irish guy named Paul Robin, who had been working at the Salk Institute in San Diego, and Paul Robin hired me upon the recommendation of this, forget her name right now, I'm sorry, this Alan's successor. So that's how we ended up at UCSD. But the job was unleash the power of UCSD, let it loose, open it up, right? So the only thing I knew how to do in that respect was to facilitate business licenses between external partners and the university. And I had a team of 32 people now, all of whom had really bad training, business training. Most of them have never been in business in their life before. They've been at the university for a long time. That was not necessarily what was wrong with them or with the approach. There was nothing wrong with them. It was with the approach that they had been taught. It was how they had been taught. And they had been taught to be very averse, very risk averse, afraid of making mistakes, right? They were all afraid of making mistakes. And the question is, well, what are you afraid of, right? What's going to happen if you make a mistake? What are the consequences of that? And the answer was always, well, I don't know the value of X, Y, Z. I don't know when to let go. I don't know when to say, it's okay for me to sign the damn document and just get it out the door and get the technology outside of the university. That was the challenge. So for me, that became the guiding principle that I used to help train my team. And it worked. It worked really well. I had people, I started with a really good team, by the way. They were very good technically. They knew the regulations. They've done many deals in the past. They knew how to get deals done. They just didn't know how to get them done fast, basically. So work with them, gave them examples, created a few programs where we actually, with the support of the chancellor and Paul and myself, we put together some startup packages with simplified business terms. We came up with some creative offerings where we allowed licensees defer the cost of patent costs or give them some credits in royalties if they became successful. We simplified the sponsoring of research between external parties and the university, where they only had to pay royalties if they'd make more than $20 million in income. If they didn't make more than that, we didn't care, really. And I have to get back to that in a second as to why. So when I was at UCSD, I inherited a team of 32, 35 people. The annual research budget of the university was $1.2 billion, just research. $1,200 million, right? So that generated 350 invention disclosures a year. So, inventors from all over the university came to our office, They go to disclosure, I have an idea. I send my team to talk to inventors and find if there were more ideas. Of those 350, we approximately moved forward with about 220 a year in terms of filing provisional patents. My budget was $6, $7, $8 million, I forget. And that resulted in average in about 180, 200 patents granted a year. And then we did licenses of starting about 80 licenses a year, going upwards to 120 when I left in 3 years later. When I started, we were doing about 15, 16 startups a year for a few years. We doubled that to 32 by the time I was gone. And to me, I can only tell you what I did at UCSD, and I'll talk about the environment, and I'll talk about what worked for me. What I did at UCSD was just facilitate that flow, right? Because that's what I had. You have to work with what you have. You have a lot of inventions, a lot of ideas, a lot of things trying to get out of the university. Well, that was my problem. That's probably not the problem that you guys have here. Your problem, your challenges are different to mine, right? So that's what worked for me. In addition to that, I did what I knew how to do. I asked my friends to come over in and have a party at the university and help me get some technologies out. So I invited, entrepreneurs, investors in the community, executives from some of the companies in town to come and meet with us on a monthly basis. And I created a program where I had 3 or 4 people help me pick from 2 or 3 different inventions that I had, which ones we should move forward with and file and create a startup or offer to a business. I basically invited the community, the business community, into the university. The business community got really excited about that because they have never seen something like that, right? The university was always very standoffish. I don't want to show you anything. No, this is mine. You're not allowed in here. That's crazy. Well, that's insane, right? From my perspective. So we did that, and that worked really well because also the inventors, all of a sudden, they started seeing business people in the university, telling them, even if they told them, this doesn't work, this is crap, forget about it. They were happy because it wasn't me, right? It wasn't my people in the university. It doesn't matter how much training we have, doesn't matter how much experience we had, they wouldn't believe us, right? So you have to bring the experts or the perceived experts to tell them what they need to hear. And that's totally fine. That's not a problem. You want to get results, basically. So I think those were key things that we did to accelerate what happened at UCSD. At the end of 3 years that I was there, people were coming in, asking to do business deals with us, asking how they can sponsor research in a lab, asking how to build programs with the School of Engineering. And by the way, we had everything. We had engineering, life sciences, medical school, and so on and so forth. But this happened because there were already people, talent, right, that existed in San Diego. Perhaps not so much money, because back then, even 2018, 8 years ago, San Diego still lacked investment capital. Most of the investment capital came from the Bay Area, from San Francisco, from Boston, right? And so on and so forth. But you had serial entrepreneurs. You had people who had launched a startup, have done a venture, and they wanted to do it again. Now, this is another key aspect of the American enterprise culture, and this applies everywhere in the US. People pay it forward, right? That's why Len is here. That's why Hal is here. Brian is here. They're here on their own dime, on their own time. They're very curious about what we're doing, what we're getting. They want to learn. They're paying it forward. I don't see that happening in other places very much outside of the US, and that is a key element of entrepreneurship. When I met Cedric at LA Biomed, he invested his time, his money, and effort into going out of his environment and finding a solution for something that he needed, right? And that was remarkable. So you create your own opportunities, basically, right? By being entrepreneurial, by being resourceful, by being, getting yourself out of your own element. So that mindset that exists in San Diego, it's key. And that is a cultural norm. And that is very hard to reproduce, right? Now, you can bring people like, again, these three gentlemen, maybe myself, and others who like to pay it forward, and we invest our own time, resources, money, energy into trying to create something without, getting compensated initially. And maybe that gets transmitted and propagated and so on and so forth. But I find that to be a key element of how the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the US thrives, right? Whether you're in Philadelphia, in Boston, in San Francisco, now in Texas, that is happening a lot too. Those are some of the key elements from my perspective. I want to wrap it up here, but anything, I want to invite any of you guys to say anything before I wrap it up on this part. Brian, nothing? Al? Okay, that's true. They'll get up here and I'll talk about the panel. So, that was my experience at UC San Diego, right? And why did I do it that way? Because I had a particular training. I had a particular set of problems that I had solved. I had launched products to the market. I knew about building a product, licensing a product, supply chain, marketing, competition. Brian was our CFO at one of the companies that I worked at. I knew that, making money was important for the company, right? And I had a sense of urgency to getting things done. That was my own personal perspective, right? And each of you, what I'm going to close is each of you has a strength that you have with your experience, with your knowledge, with your history. And if you lean on that expertise that each of you have and bring to the table, you're going to find a path forward, basically. Just like Cedric did. He leaned on his expertise, on his background, what makes him unique. And each of us, each of you that I'm looking here in this room, just the fact that you guys are here, tells me that you have something unique to you. And you're going to solve a problem in a unique way that is different from the way I solved it, the way that the person next to you is going to solve it. But if you persist and you find that, that's what's going to help you, move forward. So I hope that makes some sense. I'm going to stop there.
Thank you, Ruben, by your words. We learn something. We don't have many serial entrepreneurs here. There are some areas where it's very difficult for investor to do de-risking because requires some deep knowledge in certain aspects. That's why I believe I wanted to invite some people from the ecosystem. The idea of doing the early stage here and then incorporating the company in San Diego, for example, working with that ecosystem could be a way to get quicker to the market and to be successful. That's why I believe this is a very interesting example, and we would like to share that vision. It will be more important when we raise the first $30 million in venture capital, but we are starting. I would like to invite Andrea, not yet the panelist, one second. Andrea Obaid, where is Andrea? Is here. She's a well-known journalist in the area of science and technology, and we invited her to moderate this panel, and she's going to introduce all the other panelists. First, Bernardita, if you could come in, step in. Hall. And Brent, where is it? Lent. Here. Sorry, I didn't see where you were. Yeah, you take a seat. We will distribute the microphone. And, yeah, of course. I forgot. Yeah, you have to be there also. You have to stay there.
Okay, thank you, Eduardo, and also Claudia for this invitation. Sorry about my voice. My kids got me sick, so I will try to do my best. Yeah. Well, I want to introduce, first of all, our panelists. So First, Hal Walbrink, a recognized leader in the medical device and life science industry. Please give him an applause. He is the founder and CEO of Synetics Medical Product Development. Hall has spent more than 4 decades helping entrepreneurs transform breakthrough technologies into successful biotechnology and medical device companies. His work has encompassed product development, intellectual property, regulatory strategy, fundraising, and commercialization. Over its his history, Synetics has supported more than 100 companies, which together have created more than $4 billion in value through strategic acquisitions and initial public offerings. So we have a super recognized panelist, and we're so happy to have you here in Chile. Thank you, Hall.
Good to be here.
Well, I want to introduce now Brand Land, an entrepreneur, venture capital investor, and experienced advisors to science and technology startups. Give him an applause, please. Throughout his career, Brand has worked closely with founders to identify promising technologies, evaluate investment opportunities, and help early-stage companies grow into globally competitive business. His experience spans venture capital, company building, strategic growth, and the commercialization of deep technologies. He brings the essential perspective of investors who finance and support the growth of science-based startups. So thank you again, Brand, for being here in Chile. Now I will introduce Bernardita Araya, one of the Chilean perspective manager of CMPC Ventures, the corporate venture capital arm of CMPC. Thank you, Bernardita, to being here.
Thank you.
Applause to her. Representing women, so that's cool. Bernardita has built a distinguished career across the innovation ecosystem. Before leading CMPC Ventures, she played a key role in the early development of HubTech and Chile's technologies transfer hubs, where she contributed to strengthening the commercialization of university research. She also served as a senior associate at Aurus, one of Chile's pioneering venture capital firms focused on technologies-based companies. So thank you again. And well, Ruben, we already introduced you, and you also gave us a marvelous speech. So thank you again for being here. So a big applause for all this panel. Okay, I will start with a main question for each of us. So you can answer with your experience, your perspectives. Okay, so based on your own experience, what are the key factors that determine whether university research is successfully translated into commercially impactful business, either through licensing to establish companies or through the creation of spin-outs? How do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. So to give you a little background, I'm coming at it from a device perspective in healthcare. So the most successful transfer that I was involved with was a product out of University of California, San Francisco. It was in the electrosurgery area, that's cutting and coagulation of tissue using radiofrequency energy. And this product, the professor there, also a surgeon, had insight into how to cut cells at the cellular level, how to actually apply electrosurgery and cut cells individually. And this was very important in ophthalmology, which is an area that I have extensive background in. And so he came to a venture group and a management team that was formed up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they started to develop the product. One of the things that I cannot emphasize enough is taking a technology out of the research phase and bringing it into a team that is going to focus only on commercialization. And focus is the key. Many times we'll see interesting other technology sidelines that we might want to pursue, but we have to keep our mind and our eyes on focusing on developing what it is that we can commercialize. That's the other aspect, is understanding what the market for this particular technology would be, and to bring the right resources around it, to understand the reimbursement, to understand the intellectual property that you have that creates the value for transfer. Excuse me, my voice is also going.
Yeah.
You guys sing the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must have been. But
Yeah. That's true, Margarita.
and the regulatory side, understanding what regulatory hurdles you're coming up against. So one of the things that I've found working with another group here in Chile is that Chile has not developed the regulatory standards or processes for medical devices. And so I encourage you to look to the United States and the international standards which control the quality and design of medical devices, and understand what the European, Japanese, and US market are expecting, because they're very well developed.
Yeah, thank you all. Perfect. Brand, what is your vision? Do you want to share the microphone? We have another there.
So, it's fun to tell stories instead of general concepts. I've been involved with a few different spin-outs of technology, and I'll just tell you a couple stories, I guess. Right now, or last year, one of the biggest arguments about intellectual property was in the delivery of these new mRNA vaccines. It's a huge debate, a lot of money. Oddly enough, the original liposome technology, which these are all lipid carriers, came out of Stanford. And I was the venture capitalist behind that. Those patents continued out. But it's 25 years later that technology was so enabling, this is the key word, that it's not just technology, but it actually allowed something to happen that we could never do before, that it's still changing our life with these mRNA vaccines. So it does highlight the point of the term, well, what is actually enabling technology? It's a lot of technology, but what really is, because there's a lot of patents. Hal happens to be an expert in arguing on behalf of defendants in patent litigation. And there's a lot of patents, but there's very few that are enabling patents, and that's when I get pretty excited. So that's an example. I'll give you two other quickies and pass it along. Another big technology in America that came out of the University of Minnesota is called platelet-rich plasma. Who's heard of that? Anybody? PRP. People, Americans have heard of it. This Kobe Bryant, platelet-rich plasma is where you take blood, you stimulate from a person, it's autologous, meaning from the person, you stimulate the blood to release platelets, you spin it down to get the platelets, and then you stimulate the platelets to come with a releasant. And the inventor of this was going after something magical that Monsanto, big US company, had spent $70 million back when that was a lot of money, so it was a long time ago, in the laboratory of Harvard of a guy named Judith Folkman, to try to find the very beginning of the creation of capillaries. Beginning of tumors need to grow based on blood. But it's really interesting, and there's my little lesson out of this one, is he was a surgeon. He had spent time in this laboratory, and he goes, well, I don't know which of the jillion proteins is angiogenesis factor, the beginning of creation of capillaries, but I know where it is. And it's in the platelets. It's got to be in that release in the platelets. And he was a vascular surgeon. He says, I don't know what it is, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to take that releasant and I'm going to start utilizing that in the original application was for healing non-healing wounds for diabetic feet. Again, 25 years later, we are using it to grow hair. We are using it to lubricate knees. And we're using it for postmenopausal women in rejuvenation. So these fundamental enabling technologies are where I differentiate and get excited. And I think I'll pass along my mic.
Excellent. Bernardita.
Okay, shall I continue then? I can continue with some stories, but I think these are a little bit sadder. These are not just happy ending. I think one of the key things I learned in my PhD and then my brief experience as a researcher and then from Metro Capital, but my supervisor in the university, he was a very, very special guy. And he was an advisor for the Queen, okay, and for the UK Parliament. So he was very, very well connected. He will come with that result. They've been working in the lab for, 3 weeks. He'll go, yeah, great. So what? He will ask you always 2 questions with every single result you came with. So what and who cares? And then you say, oh, I know, like the temperature for, I remember in my experience was an experiment. We were running the calibration curve, and it was absolutely fantastic at 12 degrees, which was good enough because we didn't need a heater and so on. But then it was kind of good enough at 16, 18. And I started preparing everything for 12. And he said, what are you doing with 12? And I was like, well, it's where it works perfectly. And he was like, yes, but it's not industrially scalable. If you do it at 16, 18, it still works good enough, but it's room temperature. And he was like, but this is my paper, this is my PhD thesis. And he was like, yeah, I don't care. If you want this to be useful for someone, so I wasted probably 4 months of experiments because I had to go back and do everything again at 18. But the shift there is kind of, I think the technology you think you're discovering is the tip of the iceberg, okay? You say, this seems to work for something, but then underneath is what you're saying, the IP, the connections, the scalability, how this technology can be applied in real world. Who's going to use it? Who is your user? Who makes the decision of turning this technology into something? And then particularly, I had a section of my life working in biotech and healthcare as well. And then biotech is a very special world. I think in Chile still doesn't understand it that well, is that the one that makes the decision is the doctor. The one that pays is the insurance. Yes. The one that uses the product is the patient, okay? So then like researchers try to convince patients to try this, and then no. You still need a doctor, and then you still need to explain who pays for this, and then it's neither the doctor or the patient. So understanding the full value chain, okay, whether it's biotech or whether it's, well, now I'm in pulp and paper, so understanding the full value chain, where this technology will be positioned is super, super, super relevant. So that's when the who cares becomes really, really important.
Excellent answer. Ruben, what's your vision about this, or discuss at this point too?
I'll try to be brief, but I just agree with what you both said. And I do have a story. As I was hearing you tell your stories, there's one story I want to tell. And when a technology is developed from the ground up to solve a particular problem versus a new invention that is trying to find an application there's a different value proposition. Now, it's not impossible or hard or difficult to find an application. It just means that there's an extra step that you have to fulfill. But, and here's my story, but when Felipe, who's sitting here, could you raise your hand, Felipe? Felipe is the person who invented the technology with Cedric to treat essential tremor. He invented this technology because his dad was suffering from essential tremor, and he wanted to find a solution for his dad. Fast forward to when I met Cedric, and I talked to him about this technology, show me how it was invented, they've done. It happened to land in the lap of a guy who knew medical devices, had been pitched many times, knew how to develop a product. The chances of that happening and going in that direction were too well aligned. And, you know, I'm not that smart, honestly, but even so, I noticed that the technology combination, the market potential, my background could actually play a role. But where else are you going to find a guy who speaks Spanish, knows medical development in the US, has invested, developed products, and is willing to take the time and pay it forward and come and learn about what's going on here? I mean, I really wish I could have found someone else, someone with, you know, more money, time, experience to come and do this. But it was my time, my turn to do it. Here I am doing it, right? So sometimes what it takes is to be, you know, the right technology at the right time in the right place with the right people, right? So that's my story to you, and that's why I'm here. In my case, I'm the accidental CEO, if you will.
Ruben, but looking back, what institutional decision made the biggest difference in creating such a successful innovation ecosystem? What do you think about?
Well, I think what's common between what I was telling UCSD and what you guys are doing here is that willingness to think of a way to make it happen. So you have your own tools that you put in place here, whatever the tools are. And for me, it was the ability to, you know, have the people at the table that were willing to negotiate a fair license that would enable an investor to invest and a potential acquirer to acquire the company, which, you know, Eduardo and the other team were able to do. Same at UCSD, right? The management wanted, hey, let's do business here, right? Let's get this out, basically. So for me, the biggest institutional policy was that of, hey, we really want to get the technology over the fence, right? We don't want to hug it. We don't want to keep it. However you do it, that was key.
Thank you. Venerita, which of these characteristics are already well developed in Chile's leading research universities, and which ones are still missing? What do you think?
Capabilities?
Yeah, characteristics and
Yes,
capabilities, yeah.
We have an amazing talent, okay? Amazing, amazing talent. I did my PhD in a very prestigious university, not in the US, I'm sorry, it was in the UK. Okay, but there was one day.
Better.
Huh?
Sometimes better.
Yeah. Yep. Just slightly. But there was one day that we had no internet in the lab. This was early 2000s, okay? So I'm a geriatric scientist, as someone said once to me. But there was no internet. And all my British and European friends left because they couldn't operate the equipment, okay? And we were like, there was me, the Brazilian, and the Portuguese. And the Portuguese, we said, yay! The lab was empty for us. We ran so many experiments just using a big pen drive. So we are like Chileans have in general this chispeza, right? This very creative way of solving things. And you can see that in the lab. You can see that in researchers. We're very resourceful in the way you solve things, okay? There's not a huge amount of spending. What you were saying, we were all kind of laughing and looking at each other. Well, we wish we had that for the country, not only for UCSD, okay? So Chileans have this amazing talent and amazing ways of solving things. So this is quite unique. I've been many countries in the world, and I don't see the same anywhere else. I think that's definitely a kind of asset that we should cultivate. I think there is this, something we should work on is this, there's no enough collaboration, kind of honest collaboration between the researchers, particularly between the researchers. You know, particularly between the researchers. I have so many examples, but if I tell the story, someone is definitely going to know them. But I'll try to make it kind of easier. But there's one technology that is a diagnostic that is on, this is an alley, on this side of the alley. A big lab, they're working everything. And there is the guy on the lab just in front who was developing something similar for a similar type of cancer, okay? But he decided he wanted his own spin-off. And he went all the way asking for money and developing his own spin-off. And everyone, you know, I was on the investor side evaluating them. I was like, shouldn't you talk with this other guy that just happened to be in front of you and just parks his car beside yours? I was, no. I'm doing this my way. So being such a small community, I think this we're really kind of wasting part of this talent just by trying to make it kind of on your own. So, but at the same time, we have great examples of people that have done it, that have failed, and they're really willing to share their experiences. So I think there's a bit of both. And the final thing kind of think we should work on isn't the incentives in the researchers. Okay, what you said that kind of is all kind of, there's this sponsorship for R&D from companies. Okay, this is not possible here. I was on the hubs, I was on the universities, and now I'm on a corporation. And negotiating these type of deals with the universities is a nightmare. Okay, it's not fun. It's not fun at all, because then you have the researchers that want to do it, and then kind of they start negotiating how much money the university is going to get before you had the second meeting. So it's like, let's get to know each other. Now let's date for a little bit. Let me know you first. And then the guys that want to do it, and when you finally have an agreement, these researchers don't have the incentives, because they need to publish and to keep the accreditation, kind of this process to get the ranking of the kind of the, what's the word for that accreditation? It's the tenure. Yes, okay, accreditation of the, exactly, so it's the accreditation and the tenure, exactly. So in general, all these technology, knowledge or transfer activities are not considered in that tenure. So that's something there was definitely an opportunity.
Thank you, Bernardita. I want to ask you, you have worked with numerous university science-based spin-outs within the California university system. And in your opinion, what has made them so successful in translating research into commercial products?
Again, I'll come back to focus and realizing that a technology in itself doesn't make a business, and surround yourself with a team and understand how that product is going to enter the market, human factors from a technical standpoint. I can't emphasize focus enough, and get the right team who are experienced in regulatory affairs, reimbursement, and commercialization, what it takes to commercialize. The one thing I'm going to add to your comments about what I've experienced here in Chile, this is the second project I've looked at. One in Valparaiso. Also, I've been working with a development group there, and I have to say, the entrepreneurial spirit, the resourcefulness that I see, and the motivation. I mean, I would have a Zoom meeting with the team, the other team, and next thing you know, they went, not only did what I'd asked for, but they had gone so far beyond what I had looked for. So one of the areas that I find lacking here is an understanding of the quality management system, which is really prevalent through Europe and United States, Japan, and other countries, Australia. But I don't see it here, the regulatory discipline or a process for, well, in particular in technology, design controls, a very prescribed protocol on how to develop a product successfully. Why that's important is the regulatory agencies in the markets that you're shooting at, the US in particular, for our case, they require evidence that you follow this process. And so that's very important. And this other team I've been working with, I would give them one assignment and they would come back and they've already completed 3. You know, they go well beyond. And this team up here, those 3 guys that I've spent a few days with, I see that same entrepreneurial spirit, and it's great to work with. But I would look to the US in particular as the model of how to do that transfer process.
Yeah, I want to also share with you that we have a law here now in Chile that was approved in June now to promote technology transfer, technology, also innovation between universities and companies. So that's for us very important, and we have a lot of challenges in that. But also now I want to ask you about these challenges for deep tech startups, brands, financing the early stages of technology development before they become attractive to private investors. So how is your experience with this? What is the experience with venture capital firms manage this risk? And what capabilities are essential for investing successfully in science-based companies?
I wish I knew. So I guess I think there's a useful way to think about this, maybe this question of risk and a venture that's worthy of the risk. So in medicine, some developments, the risk of the whole venture can be figured out early if you spend the money on the right thing. For example, I have a great animal model. It's highly predictive of human response. Or I don't have a great animal model. In fact, I won't really know how well my product is going to impact as a therapeutic until I do the large phase 3 trials. As a venture capitalist, I want big bang for my buck. And the definition of that, or the formula, you could think of it as a numerator and a denominator, a division. Biggest risk alteration for the littlest dollars. So every business, especially at the university technology stage, they're very early. And I think venture folks do think about this question. How much money before the risk of the venture becomes highly mitigated, highly impacted? So what's an example? So that's a general idea. Here's an example. The second most valuable biotech company in the world, now that Genentech got sold years ago to Roche, the most valuable is Amgen. The second most valuable is, who knows? Who's going to tell me? Who's the second most valuable? Anybody? Okay, biotech experts. Gilead. Everybody know who Gilead is? Gilead, which was a antiviral company back in the beginning of its days, started working on an animal model called SIV, It's basically HIV, but of non-human, I think it was gorillas. I can't even remember. It wasn't, I don't remember. But it was extremely predictive. And I happened to read that trial. And every single one of those animals essentially got cured. And the model is highly predictive. So that risk from that set of dollars dramatically impacted both the investors' benefit of the risk and the value. And people say you build value, but experienced venture capitalists say, well, it works the other way too. You take risk off the table, you reduce risk. So that SIV model, for me, was highly predictive. Like, wait, 100% of them got better? How can this fail? And of course, there's ways. So I think about the risk mitigation in the cycle of the venture. Those that small dollars, big impact, and when I look at all of it, versus I'm going to spend a lot of dollars before the risk. For example, a chronic medication that I have to give to somebody for years, for the rest of their life, has got a lot of risk by nature because over time, I have to do trials that take a long time. It's a lot of money. Versus an acute illness, which is, hey, did I cure it or didn't I? So I think we think about risk as much as we think about return, and we think about how my bang for the buck mitigates risk. And in those that a small dollars give me a big risk early on, that like proof of concept or what have you, like, that has appeal. And those that don't, pretty hard.
Yeah, of course.
Just to complement, we see a lot with startups and academics, or kind of those are starting this entrepreneurship world. They always talk about kind of increasing value, these milestones where I create value, and I go like, think about reducing risk. Which milestone is the one? Even at the academic research stage, which are these milestones? If they don't reduce risk, they don't create value. Okay, so I think it's a very interesting flip to think from the academic's perspective, and the other thing is understanding, particularly what I've seen, with what you asked me before about what I see in the Chilean ecosystem. I see a lot of those that actually set up the startup. For the university, sometimes the success is creating the startup. And they publish this as, hey, we have created 3, 4, 7 startups this year. But then for the entrepreneurs, for that first year, maybe it's a success. But then the success is, what's the success for the venture capitalist? What is the success for the adopter? If this technology can be implemented, I don't know, in a company like CMPC, well, what does success like for the guy that is using that technology? So from the entrepreneur perspective, make sure you understand what is the value for the person that is on the other side. It's normally overseen.
Margarita, but do you think that the national biotechnology strategy that was launched recently maybe can help for develop a strong ecosystem and also have more priorities, like creating specialized financing mechanism, for example?
Absolutely. I think, well, there's no time now to go through the strategy, but I think it creates enabling kind of, it enables the discussion, I think it was honest in acknowledging things that don't work and might not be addressed directly through the strategy, but acknowledges things that we do need to work on and tries to build over what we're already doing, kind of, all right, or where there's opportunities. So I think it is a step and brings an honest discussion.
And also that we have now a government that believes in innovation. One of their challenge is to have more investment from companies into universities. That's why the Ministry of Science and Technology is working. So what do you think about that?
I think that's fantastic, but if we don't work up the incentives of the universities, as I said earlier, it's going to be a dead end. So I think I love the energy, I love the attitude and the direction, but there is a kind of, you need to work also on how to structure universities and researchers to be able to receive the money without being, how to say, punished on their tenure track. So it's a double-edged sword, how you say? Yeah.
Thank you, Benedetta. Ruben, I want to ask you now about Universidad Adolfo Ibáñez. What attracted you?
Be careful, you know, the dean is here.
Yeah, what attracted you to the UIA spin out and motivate you to become its CEO during this transition phase? Tell us more about that.
I think I jumped the gun earlier when I was telling my story, and I think that really is the answer, right? Having been in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, having led UC San Diego, having been in the corporate environment, 20 years of experience, if you will, when this landed, when this came across my path, and I remember when Cedric tapped me in the back and he goes, "Hey, are you Ruben Flores?" I was like, "Who's asking? Do I owe you money?" What? I think the number one, the entrepreneurial mindset that the inventor had, with a mindset of taking it off and launching it outside of the university, the technology development path that had a very clear application. The fact that because the way it had been sold created a brand new white space of intellectual property that no one had thought about before. And the fact that the capital journey could actually be very cost efficient, right, for this particular technology, because it's really an amalgam of existing technologies deployed in a different way. There's some new components, of course. All of those, there wasn't one single thing, right? And all of those, plus, I mean, the fact that, you know, we all spoke Spanish, that was actually important to me, right? And the fact that I had been in Chile in 2018 before I met Cedric, and I saw what you guys were doing. So all of that was extremely attractive to me. I've had been contacted by people in Australia, Japan, Canada, Mexico, even my own country, asking to start businesses, to be the CEO of many enterprises, and so on and so forth. And nothing ever really looked quite right to me, like too heavy lift, technology that didn't really have a good application, a lot of competition, and so on and so forth. You can think of over 1,000 things. So, like I said, I'm not very smart, but even when I saw all of these, you know, elements coming together, and I've been skipping actually, and I apologize about the role that Pablo has played in all of these. Pablo has been the devil investor, not the angel investor, but the devil investor, as he likes to call himself. Pablo is the guy that you want, because he pays it forward. He put his time, his money, his energy. He can be very demanding, but you need someone like that. Yeah. Yes. But he pays it forward. He risks his own capital, time, and energy, right, to help the team get going. So once you saw all of that, this is just, I want to be part of this. I want to help. So,
thank you, Ruben. We'll have time for questions, so you can think about it for our panelists after I finish with my questions. I want to ask you, based on what you have learned about Chile's innovation ecosystem, what lessons from the San Diego experience could help Chile accelerate the development of globally competitive science-based companies?
Well, this is going to be kind of a repeat again. It's look to focus, surround yourself with a team, and look to models. You know, Chile is just in the infancy of trying to get a healthcare innovation practice started, let's say. And so look to other countries that have already done it. The documentation, all the information is there. The internet is a wealth of information. There are many, many examples. So don't reinvent the wheel. Just do what other people have done and apply it to your innovation.
I was thinking, Brad, seeing all these people here, if a Chilean biotech startup pitched to you today, what will make you say this company has global potential?
Well, I'm going to tie that back to the question you also asked Hal, and they're going to connect. This is because you sort of asked, in a way, policy of building a system and a culture. So I'm going to tell a story back when I got out of business school and I interviewed in Detroit, Michigan. And I looked at Detroit, Michigan, and who were the heroes of Detroit, Michigan in business? And they were the CEOs of the big three automakers. You may not know that, but Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, all headquartered there. And the entrepreneur was the low man on the totem pole in Detroit. But in Minnesota, the entrepreneur was the hero. And the cultures that built heroes out of those entrepreneurs that were successful, like San Francisco Bay Area. I believe that if at the policy level, that's a big deal, telling that story. And when you go down to the individual deal level, the individual venture, Ruben was telling you the story, and I'll say Pablo bought into the story of the passion of the entrepreneur, founder, developer that came out that really knew his stuff and believed in it. So one of the big things, in fact, longtime venture capitalists say they look for three things in a deal. The old line venture capitalists, and I'm one of the old line now. I was a kid. We look for three things in a deal. The first is management, that is experience, have deep domain, etc. The second is management that has passion and commitment. And the third is management that won't let anything stop them. It starts with the person that I have to believe in ultimately. I'll do my homework. Did he tell me the truth? I did my homework. Does he really understand it? And in fact, I even will broaden this concept to a very US-centric concept, which I'll say, why are they terrible in rugby? Why are they not particularly good in soccer, although I don't know what happened today? Don't tell me.
We don't know.
It hasn't played yet, right?
Never played.
Oh, good. Don't tell me yet. But why are they really good in basketball? Because the great athletes wind up being attracted to the culture of basketball and not rugby. The key is to get the great athletes. The sport that gets you get the great, smart, capable, passionate people in the culture of entrepreneurism, like you got in Minnesota, you can build an ecosystem. If instead that you don't get those people and they go to work for General Motors, then you're going to be really good if you want to be big in industry. But if you want an industry to develop in the venture world and the innovation world, then you need to highlight and promote and appreciate the people and find those successes and build those analogies to them and let the youth, I'm no longer part of the youth, let the youth admire, and that's who I want to be. Make that the hero. So I really think both in a venture and in a community, those entrepreneurs' glory, if it gets built into the culture and you find it, if I've got a passionate person and I really like him or her, and they really tell the story and they really know what they're talking about, I'm going to work pretty hard to appreciate that. And you can tell. You can actually tell when you want to try to find a venture that is worthy. And to this day, as Hal knows, this is what I do. I want to work with the people that want to dare to matter. And that 0.5% makes the world that the rest of the 99.5% live in. So I think it does come down to people, people, people.
And Noel, I also want to ask you, what in a startup pitch, what is the importance of communicate, like tell a good story, yeah, to convince people. I as a science journalist, for me, if you communicate in a correct way, you can have more opportunities. I don't know, what do you think about? Because many researchers or scientists don't give value to communicate.
Well, I'm going to wind up passing this mic, and I think every one of us probably has a comment about that. For me, the communication needs to be clean as a whistle. In fact, when I'm training my CEOs, and I do this, and so I go, people ask you questions. And if you start with, well, let me tell you how the earth got invented, and you eventually, an hour later, answer my question, that's not very clear. My viewpoint is answer the question, back it up with one fact. If they want more, they'll let you know. So clean communication to what problem I'm solving, why it's a big deal, and why this development I've come up enables it. So that'd be my one. Let's pass the mic down.
I think is a very good point.
I kind of used to teach a course for PhD students a couple of years ago, and I will work on this kind of, they were all talking about, entrepreneurship and my idea, and I was like, no, we're going to start with something. You have to cut until next week to send me a video of your little brother or your nanny or your granny or your mom explaining what you do in your PhD.
Love it.
You're welcome to borrow that, okay? You're all welcome. And they will go like, what? So like, if your mom that thinks you are the smartest kid in the galaxy doesn't know what you're doing, you're not going anywhere. It's like, let's put the ball on the pitch, So it's like, and then they started, and even they could explain what they were doing. So I go back to what you said, the problem, and no one cares how you do it. Just say the so what in who cares. I'm developing a faster diagnostic for Parkinson's disease that will improve, the life of these people. Just go straight to the point, and then we will talk about the problem and the canvas and all that. They can do that with AI now, but understanding that they could present themselves, and I will use examples as, classic. How many of you, we could do that exercise here. How many of you have gone to your 10, 20, 30th year since you left school? Right? We all had those times where the barbecues and everyone meets and you haven't seen them in 20 years. Normally the scientists tend to be the nerds from the class, and everyone thinks they are the smartest. Okay, and they get there and say, hey, 20 years, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm an engineer, oh, great. Well, I'm a doctor, oh, great. Well, I'm a journalist, great. And what are you doing? Well, I'm a scientist and I'm developing the newest technology, So you have the potential of attract the attention of everyone because you're solving a real world problem. You are improving the diagnostic of you're curing people, or you're solving an energy problem. But they cannot even tell that to their classmates. So work, next time you're in a barbecue, for all those, for all you that are scientists, make sure, you can tell a cool story about what you're doing.
We need more workshops to learn how to communicate in the correct way, of course.
And to your point about your Parkinson's example and why it matters. Tell me why I care. It was the very first thing you said.
Exactly.
Clean as a whistle. And we were talking about today or yesterday, pancreatic cancer and glioblastoma. If you could develop an earlier stage diagnosis, that's great. Why does it matter? Because if you can, before it goes metastatic, I'll save all your lives. They got it. So keep it simple, stupid. And by the way, you guys know biology actually it's based on really simple processes at the very core. I mean, maybe when you multiply them up, it gets a little complicated. But, you know, there's nothing in biology that isn't, at its essence, in my opinion, I can explain it to my mom.
Yeah. Ruben, do you want to, or how do you want to say something? And also, we need more and better communication also in a great challenge that we have now in the era of this is of misinformation.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to excuse myself for a second for a quick bio break.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to steal some of Len's wisdom, by the way. You know, we're talking about communication and getting right to the point. So in investor presentations, particularly technologists, people who know their stuff, they want to show their stuff, and they over-communicate. No one cares. Yeah, no one cares. So Len has always taught me we want to have a very succinct, very pointed presentation, but you always want to be the smartest one in the room. If someone asks, in the back of your presentation, if someone said, well, where did you get that information? Or what's the basis of that assumption? You want to be able to flip to the back of your presentation, give them all of the backup information, and show that you actually know your stuff and you're communicating in an effective way. You do that once or twice during a presentation, and the VC is going to walk away saying, this guy is prepared, this girl is prepared, she understands her stuff, and they're going to be much more inclined to believe you and possibly invest in you. The other thing that I came out in a discussion today, and I think Len was saying it to us, there's two different kinds of leaders. There are those that are me first, like what am I getting out of this? And then everybody else will succeed if I succeed. And then there's those leaders who say, what are we going to do together to make this successful? And if it is successful, I will be successful. And so you want to be the latter.
Excellent. Ruben, I want to ask you, if you had to choose just one lesson Chile should adopt tomorrow, what will it be?
One lesson.
Or two.
For what?
Pick one.
For successful technology transfer?
Yeah.
You all are doing, let me just say, having the right people doing the job. Yes. Having the right people doing the job. Right? So what does that mean? Is it people with business experience? Maybe, I don't know. It really depends on what you're trying to find. Is it people who have been successful entrepreneurs? Is it something else? Have the right people doing the job. And I cannot tell you right now what the right people is until I learn more about the ecosystem. Have the right people, because people can change everything and make everything happen, basically, in this business.
Thank you. I want to open the conversation for you. Do you have questions for our panelists? Hello. And we need a microphone. If you can present yourself, please introduce yourself. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the conversation. It was very insightful for me. My name is Pablo Torrejon. I work at a technology transfer hub, Habapta, and I'm working in designing new programs for entrepreneurships to create more spin-outs and better spin-outs. And we're trying to get incentives to bring closer together business with the researchers. So my question is particular for Ruben. Which incentives did you create to bring businesses, people from businesses, to the campus?
Good question. Ruben, please.
Communication, clear communication. opening up the kimono, as we say, right? So clear communication, putting the cards on the table whenever you can in terms of what is the exchange of knowledge, information, values, quid pro quos, right? You have to be very clear, very honest, very upfront. If a faculty member is not ready to talk to industry because they're too shy, they don't want to spill away their secrets or what have you, well, they're not ready. You need to bring them when they're ready, right? And for industry, I think, they need to come with a clear value proposition also to the table, right? So before you bring them to the table to talk to an investigator, you need to make sure that the industry knows exactly also what the hell they're looking for, right? And don't just come in and diddle around. Oh, if that's what they want to do, just find around and scout and see what's happening, but they should come with that message. Hey, I'm just here to learn, see if I find something cool. If they're trying to solve a specific problem, they should come be very specific. So that clear communication between both parties and expectations, it's super key. You don't want investigators to go thinking that someone is going to just throw money at them, right, without any expectation back. You don't want industry to come in, meet a room full of people that cannot solve their problems that they're trying to solve. So you do have to spend some time upfront, preparing people and making sure that the expectations are clear in the room.
Yeah, and also choose the best communicator of your team to sell, because not everybody has that talent, and we need to choose that person.
Yeah, I just want to comment something. Okay, you haven't asked me, but I'm going to answer anyway. And it's just that, like, something what we see a lot from CMPC's perspective is we have it even as internal say that is if they come for money, they get advice. If they come for advice, they may get money. Okay, I think all what you said, I feel applies more on when they already have a startup, when they already want to connect. But researchers need to start connecting a lot earlier. I cannot emphasize that enough. A lot earlier. So many times we receive these letters for supporting applications for FONDEF, right? That require connection with industry. We get it a week before the deadline. And we've never heard of them. We go like, yeah. We even have a process internally and we only engage in FONDEF projects that we have known for at least 6 months. If you don't know them for 6 months, we don't even discuss a potential project together. So connect early. Connect early. Universities, we have done some pilots in universities that actually I think have worked, which is for these little travel grants they can apply. They can go not to academic conferences, but to commercial conferences. So you actually go and listen what the real world is talking about in your space.
Oh.
I have something to add to that. I don't know what the ecosystem is down here, but you have us down here and wondering why the success is achieved in the US like it has. And one of the things, this is more of a question to you than it is an answer. Do you have a networking group in the area? Because in Orange County, in the Bay Area, in San Diego, Boston, there are many, many networking groups where entrepreneurs get together, investors get together, academicians get together, and they socialize and they connect. So when it's time for you to do a transfer, you already have many connections in the community that people know you, they know what you're doing, and they will help you find the right resource and so forth. And one of the things that I'd also say, I'm late in my career. For the last 30 years in my business, I really haven't advertised. It's all been by relationships that are referrals into my business. They know what I do, and they ask me, will you help me develop this project? That's how I met Ruben, through a mutual contact, through a university event or connection. And so the other thing I would advise every entrepreneur starting out is develop your contact database. And when you meet someone, if they mention something about their family, their birthday, something personal, log that into the data of that contact so that 2 years from now, you can call them up and say, I have not talked to you in quite a while, but how's your family? How's your dog? And all of that. It goes well beyond like, what are you asking me for? It gets personal.
Yeah, I think that your investors can be your friends, and you have to.
What Hal just said just actually got me thinking about something that I'm particularly keen about communicating to others, which I think it makes a big difference. Some of you may be thinking about sending me, Hal, Len, a LinkedIn invitation to connect. Some of you may not. When you do that, there's a little button that says, send a personal note. Send that damn personal note and tell Hal, what did you like about his points? Tell Len, what is it that you thought it was interesting? Tell me something about yourself, right? That is just such a big difference in how we're going to remember you, how we're going to think about you, how we're going to relate to you. Don't underestimate that. So maybe I'm jumping the gun here on something, but that's such an important aspect of communicating with others, right? Being real and telling you who we are.
Thank you. Do you have any questions here? Do you have Eduardo one? Dean, the boss. Yeah.
You mentioned it, some of you mentioned it, the incentives of scientists. Because, of course, when you look, I studied in the Bay Area, and you see, of course, the closeness between investors and scientists, and they see how it can evolve. But in our ecosystem, and the incentives, how it has worked and has evolved, is for universities to rank up in those rankings I mentioned in the beginning, publications, which can be about the pension system in Norway, but if they're ranked up there, it helps. But if it's about our pension system, to be in economics, it's not ranked. So they don't care because they need to run behind that. And how do you, but that's a global problem, the scientific publication incentives. How do you work with the scientists to bring them out of that? And that can be in any field. How do you break that if you don't really, because how do you make them step out of that system? You've probably dealt with that at your university as well.
Ruben.
Yeah, I have a specific lesson that I learned, and it was an aha moment when I was at UC San Diego. I was part of the Conflict of Interest Committee, which met once a month. And you had deans, you had professors across the different departments, and we met to review disclosures from inventors who were working with industry, were starting companies, right? And the university honestly had some ridiculous policies on conflict of interest committee, but I needed to be part of that committee. And I needed to transmit to them what I thought it was a reasonable way to enable inventors to actually move forward and manage the risk. It's about risk management. At one of those meetings, we were meeting with the chancellor, and the chair of the conflict committee asked the chancellor, why are you pushing this entrepreneurship thing into us? We don't care about that stuff. I just want to publish. I just want to do my stuff. Please don't make me do entrepreneurship. And the chancellor says something really, I hadn't thought about it. It's very simple. He goes, listen, you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You can continue to do your basic science. You can do whatever you want, what makes you happy, whatever advances your career. We, and he looked at me, we're building infrastructure, pathways, connections for those people who want to be an entrepreneur in the university, right? Not everybody has to be an entrepreneur. So when we started communicating that to the faculty, you know, you can choose your own path. Sometimes you're both, sometimes you're not. then it became more of a sort of less of a resistance to adopt it and realize that, hey, it's not me, it's my brothers in the university or my other coworkers who are going to become entrepreneur. To me, that was very powerful, right? And that enabled everybody to kind of coexist. Is MIT very good at basic research and entrepreneurship? Yes, both. Is Stanford very good at basic research entrepreneurship? Yes, both. And you don't have to be both. You can be either, right? So I think that was something key that was safe for me.
Yeah. From the Chilean perspective, there's something I've seen, not all the time, but often enough to be worrying a little bit, is that when you have academics that want to start this entrepreneurship process, that this is going to be a very Latin American kind of reference, but they are like Kiko. They don't share the ball. You know Kiko? Of course I do. Oh, okay, exactly. So, you know Kiko, okay? So, exactly. So this
it's a TV series.
It's a TV series.
Okay.
So then they want to be the entrepreneur and they want to be the CEO, and they're not letting someone with more business experience taking the CEO role because they are in love with this new persona they have. They can go on pitch, they can go on appear in the radio, in the newspapers, and they're so proud, but they don't build a team, as you said, okay? And they don't bring up, you also said this, is what's in for me, but most of the academics have amazing postdocs. Those guys have a true kind of drive, because unless they kill the professor, they're not going to get that position, right? So the postdocs are amazing talent to take this entrepreneurship role, and they can learn. They're more malleable and into do these kind of things. And the other thing I've seen that has worked is, just for kind of some examples, I've seen it work in Europe and a few universities here, is that those academics that want to pursue this route, it's not that they have to change completely their path, but they just don't have to teach. They get 1 year without teaching. And that gives them enough focus to continue the research, explore, go to conferences, go to meet with industry without having to write papers or to kind of just teach. So that's something that doesn't disrupt the whole accreditation process or the papers. They can still do that, but still they have the bandwidth to in the morning not think about the class they need to give to 80 boring students, or not kind of enthusiastic enough, but to at least have the bandwidth to go and talk to the outside world and have the focus and build a team and so on.
Thank you, Bernardita. Eduardo, do you have a question?
No, just to complement. We don't want really good researchers to go outside of the university. We want to retain them. Then one way to go is to work with graduate students and turn them entrepreneurs. And that's the way we are trying to promote, Then the researcher could be, in kind of the development of the technology, but continue in the university, and then he has stakes in the company, but you have their students that become the CEO, etc. That's a way. No, but I have a question. We have done, in terms of policy, I will go to the policy side, we have been investing and developing venture capital. We have today 60 funds with $2.5 billion in asset under management, which is significant. But they are not really moving into very early stage phase. And there is a gap there, because the startups, scientific startups, also doesn't have the entrepreneurial capabilities. You said management, but even very basic things that you need to have for a company are not there. Then how you do a kind of a company builder type of thing. Maybe we should start thinking to put some money, even public money, in company building. Do you think that's something interesting, to be able to support, or we just continue with venture capital promotion?
Oh, you need the microphone. And Brand, if you want to answer too?
I think it depends on execution there. It sounds plausible, but how are you going to do that? And how are you going to promote it? Is it through your business school that you cross-pollinate between your technology and your business school? I don't know.
Public money has been supporting venture capital, and why not supporting something else? Company building.
Yes. Yes, maybe you want to.
Brand,
I agree, as long as you have the right people doing it. The right people.
Do you want to answer?
Right?
Yeah?
That would take you a long.
Yeah. Jose Miguel. But Brand, well, you go first. We have.
I have a question mainly. It's the following. I'm absolutely agree about the incentives for the researchers in the university. This is a major topic, so we have to solve that first. So my question to you, sometimes when you see, especially in the Chilean case and Latin America, researchers are in love with the solution, not the problem, first. And the second one is probably our ecosystem is heavily supply side managed, not demand driven. So your experience, for example, in the private sector and the productive sector, and yours as well, is do we have a problem that all the systems mainly focus on the supply side rather than demand driven one? Meaning that the private sector have to play a major role in terms at least to define problems and challenges that can be solved using science and technology. You think this is an issue, and especially for Latin American countries, or not?
It's totally an issue. We have to say that there's so many beautiful solutions for non-existing problems. They're beautiful. They're beautiful. There's an excellent pitch, an excellent management, and everything, but they just solve nothing. Okay? I think there's something interesting where there's a role for the hubs and the whole technology transfer ecosystem, not only the hubs, but the TTOs and so on, and to be this kind of one-stop shop for the companies. Okay, I was kind of working with HubTech for a number of years. Now I'm at a large, kind of one of the fourth largest company in Chile. And the key thing is that we have defined challenges and we go to events but then if I go, if I start talking just with this university, then this university wants to keep, we're going to solve it for you. But we're going to solve it. And then we're going to get the metric to tell everyone that we are the ones solving the problem for CMPC. So that's where a kind of more neutral approach, I think, has helped. We are working with all the hubs, for example, telling them our kind of all the challenges that we can disclose. And the ones that can disclose have already served to get to know the researchers, to get to know the university, to understand which university we can just pick up the phone and say, hey, we're doing this. And they go, yes. And those others that send you kind of a meeting with the lawyers because they want to negotiate the IP that doesn't exist yet. So I think it's a big role from the company's perspective, from the corporations, to be able to convey these messages, something that I've been pushing strongly. So I think it has worked a little bit, at least for CMPC, but it's not very common. And from the kind of innovation ecosystem side, I think there is a role for the hubs, for the technology transfer space, to be this one-stop shop, but on the community perspective. We live by, everyone needs, as soon as one university solves a problem for a big company, all the other companies will want to try the same approach, might not be the same university. So I think we need to stop this competition and do this co-petition. Let's work together to solve these issues.
Thank you, Hall. And after Brand. Oh, no. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to follow on with that. You're correct. There are many. I love technology. I'm an engineer by training with applied physics background, and I love gadgets and I love the newest invention, but I look to Regain as a great example. Felipe's father had a problem. He was a surgeon. He could no longer operate. He says, I need a solution. And that's the problem. It drove the technology, right? And you start out in a new enterprise, and you're all excited. And then you go through the valley of death and doubt and all of that. But when you're solving a real problem, you continue through that.
Brand.
I'll be the contrarian. What a surprise. What came first? The chicken or the egg? They came together. It doesn't matter where you start. You know, you can start from the market. You could start from the reimbursement. You could start from the regulatory. Good strategy has to hit all the points on the circle. You want to start with the invention? Have at it. Great. Doesn't matter. Solve the whole problem. If it's good strategy, it's good strategy. I don't care where you start. But yes, we talk about the concept, and yes, there's plenty of examples of innovations that we had to find a place for. But there's also plenty of examples of people go, I got to solve this problem for my dad. But they never did. Yeah, so I just don't, I think we as analytics, can analyze this stuff beyond its practical reality. The practical reality is, does it have a compelling, complete enough venture that I'll write a check? That's the only question. I don't care where you start. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I want to thank Brand, Bernardita, Hall, Ruben. Please give them a big applause. Extraordinary conversation. I'm very proud of this, and thank you to invite me. Thank you. Eduardo.
No, I just want to thank Andrea. Great job.
Thank you.
All the panelists. Thank you very much. The Dean for introducing this, and all of you for being here today, sharing this very interesting discussion. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Great meeting you. Yes, great meeting you. You're so funny. You're so passionate.